How's everybody feeling? Feeling the peace and the love yet? The event that defined a generation was originally billed as an Aquarian exposition. 3 days of peace and music to be held on August 15th at Max Yasgur's farm near Bethel, New York, actually 43 miles southwest of Woodstock. The organizers expected about 50,000 people. But by August 13th, 50,000 people were already camped out on location, and 100,000 tickets had been sold. All told, 1 million people descended on Woodstock in 1969, bringing local highways and roads to a standstill. Eventually, about 500,000 people would actually reach the venue, ill-prepared for such an incredibly large crowd. Yet although Woodstock experienced huge numbers, bad weather, muddy conditions, lack of food and water and sanitation, the overall vibe was peace and harmony for 3 days. In 1969, America was engaged in a war in Vietnam, a conflict many young people vehemently opposed. It was the era of the anti-war movement and the civil rights movement, a period of great unrest in America, and Woodstock was an opportunity for these people to come together, to find unity in music, to spread their message of peace and love. The audience was a diverse reflection of the rapidly changing times, and the festival was a testament to the power of the 60s counterculture movement. On the third day, the farmer who lent the land, Max Yasgur, addressed the crowd and said, "You've proven to the world that 500,000 young people can get together and have 3 days of peace and music and nothing but peace and music, and God bless you for it." I would say that we could all agree that America is in need of a desperate new counterculture of peace and love again today. The generation who went to Woodstock came in peace, they shared love, and then they carried that spirit out into the world. And it's striking how similar the spirit of Woodstock is to the commission that Jesus gave to the 70 in Luke. "Go on your way," he said. "Carry no purse, no bag, no sandals," as many travel to Woodstock with no shoes on. "Greet no one on the road. And whenever you enter a house," he said, "peace to this house. And if there is anyone who shares in peace, your peace will rest on that person, but if not, it will return to you. Remain in the same house," he said, "eating and drinking what they provide. And whenever you enter a town and its people welcome you, cure the sick and say, 'The kingdom of God has come near.'" Jesus' words remind us that God's realm is near whenever and wherever people offer peace and share food and drink and healing with one another. Whenever and wherever people bring peace and share love and offer hospitality to strangers. The mission Jesus gave to the 70 is a powerful corrective to most of what goes for Christianity in America. Much of what Christianity in America looks like today looks so different from the message and the mission of Jesus. It's not as if we've strayed slightly off course, is it? Just need a small corrective. Christianity in America today mostly preaches the opposite message and mission of Jesus. Where Jesus sowed peace, American Christianity sows war overseas and gun violence at home. Where Jesus sowed love, American Christianity sows hate and indifference to LGBTQ people and minorities. Where Jesus sowed hospitality and healing, American Christianity sows xenophobia and inhumanity to the immigrant and the poor. This should disturb us, because as it says in Galatians, "Don't be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever you reap, you will sow." On this 4th of July weekend, I'm reminded of the words of Frederick Douglass, who said, "Between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference. So wide that to receive one as good and pure and holy is of necessity to reject the other as bad and corrupt and wicked. To be the friend of one is to be the enemy of the other." He said, "I love the pure, peaceable, impartial Christianity of Christ. Therefore, I hate the corrupt, slave-holding, women-whipping, cradle-plundering, hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, he said, I see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. I look upon it as the climax of all misnomers, the boldest of all frauds, the grossest of all libels. I was hesitant to preach this text on the 4th of July weekend because it has been interpreted so poorly throughout history. Like the Great Commission that comes in Matthew 28, this text has become one of the foundational scriptures for Christian missionary endeavors and evangelism throughout the world, which, as we know, have a tragic and violent history. Instead of following Jesus' command to go in peace and to share love and hospitality and healing, Christian missions often became a disguise for Western European colonialism. Christianity was used to justify the actions of colonists who did not consider indigenous peoples to be human beings, but uncivilized savages. In arrogance, we imagined our culture was superior and divinely ordained, and that we were sent by God into the world to bring not only spiritual and cultural and economic and political salvation, by sharing the blessings of our Christ-inspired civilization with primitive people who were imagined to be suffering under satanic oppression, idolatrous religious practices, ignorance, and disease. We did not bring peace and love, but cultural and religious devastation and, in some cases, genocide. One of the most powerful depictions of this was Joseph Conrad's famous novel, The Heart of Darkness, which described a journey up the Congo River into what was known as the heart of Africa, or the heart of darkness, the dark continent. And yet in the novel, Conrad raises questions about the relationship between colonialism and Christian missions and showed that there was little difference between the so-called civilized people and those they considered savages. For Conrad, it's the colonists who are revealed to have a heart of darkness, not the indigenous. He wrote, the conquest of the earth, which mostly means the taking it away from those who have a different complexion, is not a pretty thing when you look into it too much. We did not go into the world like lambs amid wolves, as Jesus instructed. Instead, we went into the world like wolves and devoured communities of defenseless lambs. We were wolves, hell-bent on spreading our culture and civilization at all costs, instead of defenseless lambs sent out to share peace and love and hospitality and healing with the world. And this is how we lost sight of the message and mission of Jesus. This is how Christianity was turned into the opposite of what it was intended to be. It's extremely hard to read the Bible rightly when you have become the wolves of history. History, we know, is written by the wolves, but the Bible was written from the perspective of the lambs, which means that everything is upside down and backwards for us when we approach the text. And so we often end up reading the Bible like that wonderful children's book, The True Story of the Three Little Pigs. Anyone know this story? It's the story of the three little pigs told from the wolf's side of the story. In case you haven't read it, in the wolf's version of the story, he is a benevolent character just trying to bake a cake for his grandmother and needs to borrow a cup of sugar from the neighboring pigs, who are incredibly inhospitable to him. And all the huffing and puffing was simply the result of a bad cold that he had. And so, as you can see, the wolf was unjustly imprisoned for just trying to borrow a cup of sugar and accidentally blowing some houses down with a cold. Talk about revisionist history. But that's how American Christians often read the Bible. Instead of trying to reinterpret the stories of Jesus from the perspective of the wolf, we simply need the courage to see ourselves as the wolves in the story. We need the strength to realize we're not always the disciples sent out, the ones sent out like lambs amidst the wolves. Sometimes we're the wolves, the dangerous ones. We are more often the villages and towns throughout Galilee, the cities and houses the defensive lambs are sent out to. We're the people who've been called to welcome the lambs and offer hospitality, which means that Jesus' warning to the cities of Galilee is a warning to all of us and to the cities of America. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! At the judgment it will be more tolerable for the Gentile cities like Tyre and Sidon than for you. And you, Capernaum, will be brought down to the pit and laid waste in a garbage heap of fire. It will be more tolerable than Sodom than for you. Such harsh words from Jesus remind us that for all who like to talk about the Old Testament God of wrath and the New Testament God of love have missed these parts of Jesus' teachings. May they serve as a helpful corrective for us. Jesus was echoing the words of Hebrew prophets who came before him, who proclaimed that God required hospitality and fair treatment, and that inhospitality, injustice, and oppression of the foreigners particularly would result in judgment and destruction on the nation. Jeremiah spelled it out quite clearly. If you amend your ways and truly act justly with one another, if you do not oppress the immigrant and the orphan and the widow among you, then I will dwell with you in this place. But if you do not heed these words, I swear by myself that this house and this nation shall become a desolation. The demand for a nation to offer hospitality to strangers goes all the way back to Genesis, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which was not about sexuality as Western Christianity would have us believe, but about hospitality to strangers. Sodom was destroyed because of a lack of hospitality. A tradition that was so well known in the first century that when Jesus was rejected in Samaria, James and John wanted to call down fire from heaven and turn Samaria into Sodom. But Jesus said no. Right before Jesus sent out the 70, an argument arose among the disciples as to which was the greatest. People have always wanted to be the greatest. But Jesus took a child and said to the disciples, "Whoever welcomes this child in my name welcomes me and the one who sent me." Jesus said, if you want to be great, if you want to make Israel great again, if you want to make your faith great again, then you must welcome children. Because when you welcome children, you welcome me. That is what it means to be great. So who are the lambs in our world today? They are the poor and defenseless, immigrant children and their families who have come to our border because of violence, corruption, and economic despair in their countries. That is the result of what we, Americans, have done. They come in peace, simply wanting to be laborers in our harvest. They come carrying no purse, no bag, no sandals down a treacherous and deadly road. They come looking for love and welcome and hospitality, hoping simply to find something to eat and drink in our cities and our homes. These lambs come in peace, and yet many of us act like wolves with hearts of darkness, saying there is no room for these children of peace. We reject them, we detain them, we brutalize them, we dehumanize them. And I must say that the dust on the feet of the immigrants being rejected and harmed on our border is testifying against us. Jesus' warning echoes forward to us all. Woe to you, El Paso, McAllen, Brownsville. Woe to you, Quint and Weslaco, Texas. Woe to you, Rio Grande Valley. Woe to you, U.S. Border Patrol. Woe to you who preside over inhumane camps and torture facilities. Woe to you who look away and turn a blind eye to violence happening to the lambs who have come in peace. Woe to you who have turned your backs on Lady Liberty and ignored the great American plea, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Did you ever stop to wonder, what if immigrants are missionaries that God has sent us for the sake of our own salvation? What if we are the ones who are in need of saving? What if we're the ones who need to hear the good news of Jesus again, disguised as a woman from Honduras or Guatemala or Mexico? What if they have come to offer us the peace, love, and healing and reconciliation we need with those we have harmed? What if by rejecting them and rejecting those who come with them, we are rejecting Jesus and rejecting God and rejecting our salvation? What if our inability to welcome the immigrant spells our inevitable doom and destruction? In times like these, those of us who are committed to the message and mission of Jesus often find that we must turn to sources outside the traditional Christian landscape to discover a spirituality and a theology that has not been polluted by the forces of imperial violence, hate, exclusion, and inhumanity. And so just like the Christians of the Woodstock era of the 60s counterculture, we often need to turn to other religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, to find resources to reimagine our faith like Martin Luther King did, like Howard Thurman did, like Dorothy Day did, like Thomas Merton did. And we need to turn to music to find there, even in things which are called secular, God's vision for peace and love and hospitality and healing. This week, as we saw aggressive displays of American nationalism right alongside horrific pictures of a humanitarian crisis on our border, I tried desperately to reclaim my love and my pride for this country. And I did it through music. Not just old music from Woodstock like the songs we're singing today, but new music. For instance, one that just spoke to my heart is Janelle Monáe's Americans. Monáe's vision for America is more closely aligned with the message and mission of Jesus than most of what goes for Christianity today. Her lyrics help me to express my profound lament for America. She says, until women can get equal pay for equal work, this is not my America. Until same-gender loving people can be who they are, this is not my America. Until black people can come home from a police stop without being shot, this is not my America. Until poor whites can get a shot at being successful in this land, this is not my America. Until Latinos and Latinas don't have to run from walls, this is not my America. But I tell you that the devil is a liar, because it's going to be my America before it's all over. And then in the chorus, she sounds that powerful word of hope. Just love me, baby. Love me for who I am. Fallen angels singing, clap your hands. Don't try to take my country. I will defend my land. I'm not crazy. I'm an American. The culture has taken Christianity captive. But that's why we need a new counterculture of peace and love in America today, of people who are so deeply committed to Jesus' message and mission of peace and love and hospitality and healing. We are desperately in need of the spirit of Woodstock to descend upon us again. We need rock and roll and other forms of art to give us the ability to say, so long as children are in cages and people are being harmed, this is not my America. We desperately need the ability to imagine a new America for all God's people, an America where detention centers are not concentration camps, but asylum waiting areas, with beds and showers and food and toys for children, where everyone gets hugs of welcome and an embrace from social workers and people of faith and counselors when they arrive, where family members are kept together and where everyone's case is heard, and some are approved and some are not. We understand that, but everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Can you imagine it? It's easy to imagine it if you try. Imagine all the people who would be living lives in peace. You may say that I'm just a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Amen.